So we're in between two kind of extremes with this. We're in between the extreme, like the Quilliam kind of guys, who would give like a total revamp of the whole thing, and we're and kind of have like a moral relativism.
What's your strongest objection?
Just this point. So we accept that our moral relativism, everyone can be equally wrong. That's the kind of basis, the angle they're coming from, even if they wouldn't say it themselves. Then we've got our point, which is no, we have the objective moral reality, and then Anjam Charji kind of followers have the same thing. They have the objective moral reality. Therefore, we should assume that in our discussions with them. We say no, we start from that and we prove it. We don't assume it. So if you understand how that works on a level like pork, so you might get somebody saying that there's no such thing as absolute wrong or right. Well, pork is subjective. If you like it, you don't like it. I know it says it in the traditional text, but we can reinterpret it. Then we've got somebody from the Anjam Charji kind of camp who would say pork is forbidden. You shouldn't eat it, and you should understand why you shouldn't eat it. We say no, pork is forbidden in Islam. It's historical. But in terms of communicating that's a secondary issue. The primary issue is that does the Creator exist or not? If you don't accept that, there's no way you're going to accept pork.
Correct.
So these are the discussions. But how do we live in our society? Yes, we uphold the rights of our neighbour. Yes, we do the utmost best to be good, positive neighbours in a society. When we say neighbour, we don't just mean neighbour to my next door neighbour. We mean neighbours in a society.
Different cultures within the society.
Within the society, there's actually layers and layers of different people living side by side, and this is where it starts on a grassroots level. You should interact with a Muslim in your workplace, and you should be able to see Islam from your interaction with him. It shouldn't just be a theological discussion. It should be his theology is acted out in his works and actions. So you would see this, and he wouldn't. And we, one important thing as well, that we don't put things. We prioritize. We don't put things in jumbled order. If you don't accept Allah's existence, you're not going to accept pork, or alcohol, or growing a beard, or hijab. So these secondary topics, we can understand. We can give kind of tasters and a little insight of why we have the hijab, why we don't eat pork, why we don't drink alcohol, the harms and the benefits of not drinking alcohol, and so on and so on. We can give that, but that's not really where the discussion lies. The discussion lies in a Creator said so. You don't believe in a Creator? Let's talk about that. So these are the kind of positions that we would.
But his basic point, William's basic point, as I understand it, is that this position leads to, danger. That's his argument, isn't it? He's basically calling for a more liberal, less fundamental, whatever you want to call it, revision. In order to bring it in line with secular attitudes.
So that's a starting point, that the secular attitudes are right, and they're a good thing. We can actually debate on, is democracy a good tool? Is secularism a good tool? Is atheism a starting point? Is materialism a starting point? So we have these kind of theological discussions.
It makes sense. But it actually makes sense, because what that group is doing is saying that we have the moral high ground, and they're expecting you to toe the line.
Exactly.
And you have your own moral position on this, and you want to bring it to the table. You don't want to be just marginalised and told to toe the line. You want to bring your points of view into that discussion
and discuss it on the foundational level, not on the secondary level.
Right.
That's in essence.
And you're seeing William as as somebody that's
so they're basically
a threat to that.
So they've basically, it seems like, and I can't give any quotes or chapter and verse and all that, but it just the impression that's got widespread amongst the Muslim people. I'm not sure if it's what they've actually said, but it seems like they basically give in to the premise that secularism, the secular premise that we live in this society.
I think what they're actually, what I've seen of them, that they're basically trying to reduce your religion to a metaphorical argument.
More of a cultural. You can be
a cultural Muslim.
Cultural Muslim, and not actually have the belief. Paradise, hellfire, they're not actual real things. You're just figments of imagination.
Which is where I came in, watching you getting quite heated there, because there was a trying to talk it through as if it was a metaphor, and you were against that principle. But I think there was, what I saw, there was an underpinning of something else going on, which is what you've just expressed to me. That's the important thing. We did have to be fair, what happens on that camera clip, you can't see how it came in, and it was a bit
kind of a bit full on. So obviously I reacted to that. It didn't come across the best way. That's why I kind of came back.
It's not easy to keep your cool, is it?
It's not, especially if the way you jump in and then that kind of sets the tone for the first discussion. You got I'm a human at the end of the day. If a man comes at me a certain way and I react a certain way, I shouldn't react, but that's how it is. But it kind of came across that I was.
It's sad that we're judged on that second.
We did have we shook hands after that, and then we said, you know what, let's go into this again, and then we did talk about it in a much more toned and much more toned down, detailed. And the thing is, when you're having these discussions calmly, you can actually go into the detail and kind of break it down a lot easier than just like table tennis. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's what happened. That's what happened.
It was interesting.
They've got footage of it. I don't know if they're gonna.
I was curious. I mean, to me, it felt as if. I mean, I'm going to say this is going to sound disrespectful, but it sounded as if they're almost saying they're not Muslims. That's how it felt to me, and I didn't understand how you could.
In essence, that's what's implied by it.
Yeah.
That's what's implied by it.
That would be offensive. That's my point. Yeah.
Do you know what? These conversations, we have them, they are attached to our hearts. It's not just like an academic discussion, but we can be calm and civil with it. It's literally just the way he came at me just then. If he was to come at me a lot quieter and more polite and show that he was willing to hear both sides and stuff like that,
to have a discussion.
We'd still love and hate for what we believe in. We'd still have that kind of attachment to it, but obviously the discussion will go a lot better.
Building bridges, not walls.
Exactly. So what, you spoke to him after that and he wasn't happy?
No, that's right. We had a little brief chat afterwards, about it. I mean, we had talked about lots of other things, but brief chat about afterwards, and he was, he just raised the thing about the hands. To him it was clearly a metaphor.
Okay.
And to you it was much more fundamental and at the root of your belief.
Yeah. And, there's one clear basic argument that we went through in that, and it's like he kept kind of avoiding it. When we say that Allah is living, that living belongs to him in a matter that befits his majesty. So if you say, and it don't mean like our living. This was the whole point I was mentioning it. So to say that Allah has a hand, again, same way he has life in a matter that befits his majesty, not like our hand. So it's not. So his problem was that you're likening Allah, but we're not likening Allah because it's a hand, but we don't understand.
We don't understand what that hand. The form of that hand.
The form of that hand. We don't give
really, you weren't really arguing about anything there. That sounds like
it is. Because the angle that this came in, I'm not sure he realizes why he comes from this angle.
Sure.
Historically, this was a kind of this was a reliance on Greek philosophy, as opposed to reliance of what came from the prophets and messengers. So we have kind of two camps. One person that would drink from the cup of the Plato, Aristotle, the Greek metaphysics, and the other kind of camp would take from the prophets and the messengers. Allah described himself in this way. Be sufficient in that. Just follow. You don't need to philosophize and come up with a new thing. Otherwise, there's no need to send prophets. Yes, you use your intellect, but as one of our scholars said, that the intellect is like a witness in a court case, and the judge is the actual revelation. So when the revelation has need of the intellect, it brings it forward, like a court case. When the judge has need of a witness, it calls him, and when a witness's testimony is not required in another aspect, because it's not his expertise or something like that, then he's dismissed. So the intellect cannot be used in everywhere. One example that our scholars gave is a man came to him and said, how is Allah's hand? How is Allah's this? How does Allah ascend? He said, how many leaves are there in the trees? Can't enumerate that. How many stars are there in the sky?
It cannot be known.
Can't be known. But we can see these things.
Yeah.
We can see these things. Now, obviously, I know you're atheist, but us as Muslims, we believe this is based upon the Creator.
These things,
But the Creator, we itself cannot see, but we see the effects of the Creator. So if we can see the tree, and it goes even further. How many hairs on your head? This is your head. You look in the mirror every day. You should know how many hairs there are on your hand and all these things. If you cannot enumerate that, then how can your knowledge encompass how Allah's hand is? So it's on that level. Being sufficient with following what the prophets came with, whereas trying to philosophize in an area that your mind will not be able to philosophize.
I mean, there's so, from the outsider viewing in, you have division. We can see the division. We can see the Shia Sunni division.
If we deny division, this division, in fact, is a proof for our prophet being a prophet. He actually said that this Islamic nation would have these divisions 73. The Jews having 72 and the Christians having 72 and the Jews having 71. Meaning the Christians would be more divided than the Jews, but then the Muslims would be more divided than the Jews and the Christians. So we will have loads of the division, but we do have a remedy as well. i.e. we still have the works and the sayings and the explanation of the early Muslims.
Go back to first principles.
So we go back to the early text. Now, it's not like Christianity or not like Judaism, where we can actually, with us, we can get the Quranic verse and we can get the hadith of the Prophet and show how that was explained and understood by the early Muslims. We can't do that with Jesus' teachings. We can't do that with Moses' teachings. We can't do that with, we can have, there is some sort of tradition, but how far does that tradition go back? And can it be established to go back to Moses?
It's not as clear cut.
It's not as clear cut.
Even from a casual observer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are these divisions, and we have to be kind of vocal of them. If we're not, because we're.
But you can see why the metaphoric approach, the philosophic approach,
yeah,
why it happens, because there is so much division. So there's scope. If there wasn't so many, if there was no division,
yeah,
it would not happen.
But the same narration that I mentioned about the division actually gives the cure, because initially there was no division. And the works and the explanation of that time, when there was no division and everybody was following the pure teachings, we still have the works from that time. We still have the sayings from that time. We still have the students of those disciples of the Prophet Muhammad and their works. And we still have the books that are compiled by the Imams in the first 300 years of Islam, that have taken it down from this person and that person who took it. Yeah. So we still have this. Now, it's not like, and then the division came after this. Okay, so we can just go back to the early books, and
the division was immediate, wasn't it? It was pretty much immediate.
But initially,
which is sad.
Yeah, the Khawarij, for example, the ones that fought against Ali. But we know which ones were with the companions and which ones weren't. So it's simple in that sense. Our command is to go back to the righteous early Muslims, not just early Muslims, because those who deviated, they were some considered Muslims, some considered not Muslims, but the Khawarij. But those who deviated, they're not considered the ones we go back to, because they're not the righteous ones. They're not from that stream of tradition. They never sat with the companions and took from them
so there was a blatant deviation.
That was external from this body of Muslims, the main body of Muslims.
Gotcha.
So we can go back to their early works and see.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of. I don't know if you've heard the four madhabs in Islam: Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi'i.
A little bit.
Yeah. And these Imams, their creed and their theology is known and widespread. It's documented. Their statements are widespread. So we can go back to what they said, and many other Imams like them. So by us not being vocal is us remaining silent on the likes of Daesh, ISIS. ISIS do something. They use a verse from the Quran. They use a statement from the Prophet's hadith. Okay, but they miss out the understanding of the early Muslims in terms of his context, in terms of his understanding, in terms of his using an absolute verse in a specific circumstance.
So you feel, because we were arguing this earlier, in your interpretation of the whole situation, you feel that there is no argument for what they do? Because it feels as if there is.
Everybody has an argument.
Yeah.
Everybody has some sort of reason to do what they do. Our Prophet actually, again, why would we use a Prophet? One of the reasons, he actually told us that they will speak with your tongue and they will have your skin. Meaning, they're not going to quote the Bible to you. They're going to quote what you know, what you're familiar with.
Yeah.
They're going to quote the Quran. But again, in the Quran, it mentions that there are verses that are clear and verses that are unclear. And those who have a disease in their heart, they follow the unclear verses. There's ambiguous terminology. So
I'm glad you said that, because that was the argument. The argument was that there is no ambiguity.
No, there are verses that are clear and verses that are unclear.
Exactly.
And how do we understand clear and unclear? Clear means we don't need no interpretation. Unclear means we understand it, but it needs an interpretation to understand it and get the full meaning of it. The context, exactly. Yeah. Context and interpretation. So everybody will have an argument. I will give you one example within Islam. Yeah. So you've heard of Sufis, I'm sure.
Yes.
And you've seen how they do their kind of their chanting and their prayers. I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't think I have actually. No.
So
there's a couple of Sufis who come here that I speak to.
If you look at how they do their so for example their chanting, I'll give you another one. The Prophet's birthday is an easy example to understand. It's not the greatest of innovations. It's not the worst crime, but it's something that we still consider is innovative. Now, is there a basis? When we speak to this person who celebrates the Prophet's birthday, we say, is there some basis for what you have from the Quran and from the Sunnah? He'll say, yes. Doesn't it say to love the Prophet? General verse. Love the Prophet, yeah, but why celebrate his birthday on this day and this time and celebrate it in this fashion? Where's the proof for that? No, it says love him. Again, they're using a general statement to do a specific action.
Gotcha.
So, for example, when it says stand firm against the non-believers, okay, general statement, but now they're going to use that to kill a non-combatant, or a verse that's used in war. They're applying it to the context of non-war. Again, so there's many things.
But you're saying a very different thing to what another brother was saying earlier, because he was trying to argue. It was good. He wasn't being nasty about it, but he was trying to argue for the perfection of it. And what you're saying is, as what I'm seeing, it's clear to me that they can take this and use it in the way that they do, and it doesn't make them non-Muslim, if you see what I'm saying. Okay. To you, it's offensive perhaps, but to us, we are. So
it can make them non-Muslim. So there's different levels to innovations, but we'll do with the main kind of. Usually it doesn't. Usually it doesn't make them non-Muslim. But there's extremes to that as well. Okay. So if now they are using that interpretation, and they're taking something out of its context, out of its traditional understanding by the early Muslims, then we have a way to highlight that that's wrong. Now, is the problem with Islam, the sources of Islam, the Quran, the Sunnah, the understanding of the companions and their consensus, or is it the problem with your understanding? If you give a command to you've got a little nephew, you give a command and you say to him, go to the shop and get me a packet of crisps and a newspaper, and he goes and he goes and buys a football. Is there a problem with your command or his interpretation or his?
Well, this is, I mean, I understand completely, but we're not dealing with children here, are we? We're dealing
with... No, in some cases like that.
Exactly, so non-believers look at this, come from this, as they only can, and we see Muslims.
But what you can do as well, okay, so
brother, to be clear, I'm not saying that I'm unclear about whether you feel that they are doing wrong. I'm not unclear about that. I'm saying that the issue from our point of view is that there is contention in the religion that causes this. So that's how we're looking at it, from it, like an effect.
Again, because when you say in the religion,
well, in the text,
no, because there's remember, if we're talking about it's the problem of the one who heard it.
I completely understand your point.
Yeah, no, but here this point is crucial, because when we say the problem is in the religion, what is the religion? The religion and the sources for the religion are the Quran, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the early Muslims. Right. That's the sources. The adherence to the religion, I agree with you, but that's not the religion itself.
No, I understand, and it's an important distinction for you. But from an observer from outside, we're seeing just one big macro thing that we are trying to address, perhaps, right?
But again, you can't generalize like that, because you know Muslims, you know us, you come here.
I know lots of different Muslims,
you know, and you've seen the massive difference. So you can't. So what you're saying, sorry, that there is a dispute amongst the Muslims.
I'm saying that from at a macro level, when we're looking at the whole thing,
outside the box,
we can see there's contention, and we can see that there is conflict. So we are saying to ourselves, is that because the text or the knowledge is inherently contentious,
or the interpretation?
Exactly what you're saying, which is because it's a bit like, dare I say, it's like if you're trying to nip a problem in the bud, you're going to look for an easy solution. Now that might not be good for you, obviously. From an outsider's point of view, you're saying, well, can we just deal with this on a global level? Because it's very hard to look at interpretation.
But we can. Non-Muslim scholars and academics do this all the time. They can actually see.
Well, it troubles you more, right?
No, it's not troubling. I'm talking. There's some people that are genuine. They reach academic levels in knowledge of Islam. For example, there's a guy, John Hoover, in Birmingham University. He seems like a well balanced.
John Esposito.
No, John.
Yeah, no, I'm saying there's an American guy equivalent.
Okay, maybe.
Same thing.
Maybe there's another guy as well.
He's a white university scholar in America.
What's his name? Sorry.
John Esposito. He's a big wig in his knowledge of Islam and. Please look him up. Sure.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that.
Is that right?
It's fine if you just have it that way,
Put it on the white.
So
I'll look like a bloody ghost. Go on, you do that.
So you trip me up now. So basically, that's it. You got me. Blinded by the light now. That's it.
The guy.
So what we're saying is, so if you actually do look at it from a sincere discussion, you can actually see the cure, like exactly what we said.